All right, everyone, welcome back. Now, in this lecture, we are going to basically set up our theme. So, there are basically two parts of setting up the theme. The first part will be basically where we are going to uh, set up the login page, register page, and forgot password page. And the part two will be like the setting up our dashboard or admin pages. So for the login or non authorized users, we are going to basically use the login forms. So this will be the login form that we will be using. Then we will have the create user form, and then finally we will have the forgot password method, sorry, the form as well. So let's get started with that. So first of all, what I am going to do is basically we need to go and configure our routes. So in this case, we have the web, and let's actually create a new route and name it PHP artisan make a controller, and that controller would be login controller. All right, so the default one would be targeting to our login page. And so what we need is basically we need to target our login controller class, and then the function would be okay. So let's go with, sorry, so let's go with this index, and we also need to name this as login page. That's it. And finally, I am basically going to import it directly up top instead of like referencing the whole path of the class. Now inside this controller, let's create a function of index, and this will definitely return a view, and we will definitely create a folder which will be view, and we also need to return the function type. So that is basically the view that this function is returning. The other thing that I am going to do is basically I will basically give the title of login and pass that title variable as a compact. Okay, now let's create a folder here. So inside resources views, let's delete this welcome.blade.php, and let's create a new folder, and I will name it as login. And inside that login we are going to create the PHP file, and that would be index.blade.php. All right, now let me basically open the HTML page of this login page. And you will definitely notice that with all of these three pages, the login page, the register page, and the forgot method page, we have the this logo common, and definitely we have the HTML, sorry, the CSS and JavaScript both are common. So what we need to do is basically we need to separate these things. Now there are two ways of separating the things. We definitely need to follow. What I follow is basically I used to create a directory, and that directory I will create and I will follow that pattern, and it's totally up to you whatever the pattern you want to follow. But since you are learning to this series, so I will say that you stick to these patterns, and definitely you will see no issues. So what I'm going to name my folder is basically components. So inside the components, I am going to create one component, and that would be the guest.blade.php. Okay, now inside this guest.blade, I am going to paste everything, basically just the HTML of our login page, and I will paste it here. The next thing that I am going to do is we definitely need to change this path and give it a proper path. So for that, what we need to do is basically we need to extract this, change the link to asset, and this will definitely target our public folder. So this asset will definitely target our public folder. So inside this public folder, everything that we have will be accessible. So we will definitely put all these things inside the public folder. Now the same thing that we need to do is for all other things. So what I am going to do is basically I am going to search for it and replace it so that it is replaced once without like going into every line. So I will definitely copy this one and search for it and replace it, and then just click on replace all. And after CSS we have the JS as well, so we need to also work on that. So let's use JS, replace JS everywhere and replace all. And I guess that's it, since we do not have any other um, what you say is basically we do not have any images here, I believe. But there are some issues, we need to see what the problem is. Okay, I'm not sure how this came into this thing, but we do have this option here. Um, and I think, yeah, so this one is missing basically. So this is basically targeting to our theme files. That's basically just a theme specific setting. I'm not sure which theme you are definitely using, but most probably you will have to see everything and make sure that everything is working. Now, once we have created this, so one other thing that I'm noticing is that there is a dot and double colon. So let's actually remove that. Make sure that it is removed from everywhere and replace all. And let me just double check if there is nothing wrong. Okay, so seems like that everything is working fine. Now this is a component. Now this component will only need to contain the header and footer. Everything that everything else will be rendered within this component as children. So if you have already worked with React or Vue, so you have a components, and within the components you basically render their childrens. Now the other thing that I am going to do is basically I'm going to make this title dynamic. So this title will definitely come from our controllers, this title. And then this is basically I am going to use the um, config app dot name. Now the reason is that I am using config app dot name instead of env is because I want to make sure that in future or once this lecture is complete, sorry, this series is completed, and if we are going to optimize our application by just caching the views and routes and environment variables, so once you do that, the environment variables are no longer available, so they definitely go and cache it. So only the only way is to get environment variable once you are in production mode is basically through config. So once, if you are not using config, but if you are using like env here, so you need to make sure that you do not put it to the production mode. If you do that, definitely you have to replace the things from here. That's the only reason that I am basically doing it. Now the next thing is basically I'm going to cut this part from here, this whole content, and I am going to use a variable named slot. Okay, so this slot will basically a reserved variable name in Laravel. So all these childrens will definitely be rendered within this component. So how are we going to basically render this component? So all we need to do is basically we need to reference that component by using x and dash and the component name. Now you need to make sure that the components directory is properly named, otherwise this will definitely throw an error. And in order to pass the title, all we can do is basically we can just use the title like so. Okay, and then paste the HTML here. Okay, and once this is done, We have HTML ready, we have component ready, everything is ready. The only thing that is not present here at the moment is basically our files inside the public directory. So let me quickly grab those files to make sure that everything is aligned and working perfectly. Alright, so I have pasted all the folders inside my public directory. So let's take a look and see if things are working correctly as they should. And now if I reload the page, you can see that this is everything is working. Except we are basically seeing an error. So which says assets /JSON. Okay, so it seems like something is wrong with our main.js, and that is trying to basically get some en locales from our file. And the reason is that because I have already used this application a lot of places and a lot of my projects. So the only problem is that we definitely need to use this one. So now if I reload this one, and everything works perfectly. All right. So this seems that everything is now set up properly since we do not have any console errors. You can see that. And if I go to mobile mode, and you can see that everything still works there as well. All right. So which means that our component is working fine. And what we can do is basically we can quickly replicate our other two pages. So for that, what we need to do is basically we need to just go to our pages. Let me go back to the directory. We have the HTML and this one, and open that file in our terminal, in our code editor, and just grab the code. And one more thing is basically for our other pages, we need to create the routes as well. Don't forget that. So let's create a route endpoint of register, create a controller. So PHP artisan make controller, and that would be register controller. And finally, we also need to create another controller, and that is password forgot controller. Okay, so for register, we need to go for register controller, and definitely remove this class and name it as register. And lastly, for the password forgot, so forgot password, and then use the forgot password forgot controller. Sometimes I do basically miss up these things, these naming conventions, because for the password reset method we are definitely going to follow the Laravel approach. So for now, just basically making the views file, I'm using these options. Otherwise, for the password forgot, we will definitely use the Laravel option that is provided in the Laravel documentation. Okay, so let's quickly go into our controllers. Copy everything from here and paste it definitely inside the register. And let's change the login to register, and finally change the title as well. And lastly, we also need to go to the password forgot and copy this part and paste it here. And also for that, we are going to use password forgot. Let's copy this and replace the title. And lastly, let's quickly create our resources folders. So login. So similarly for the login, we need to duplicate the function, the directory to register. And similarly, let me just grab the name here. For this one, password forgot. Now for the register, we have this one here, this HTML here. So all I am going to do is basically just replace here this content, And for the password forgot, we also need to grab the HTML. Let's open it in the terminal, sorry, in the editor. Copy this HTML, and we have the password forgot here. Let's replace this one. All right. So let me close all other unwanted files. um, what else we need to do is basically we need to basically now properly link these. So before linking, let's basically just try these things and see if it is working. So if I now try to go to register page, and here you can see that we have username, email, and password. It is working very well. Let me also see if no console errors, because I'm really concerned about console errors. I do not like console errors anywhere. So now we have also this working as well. Now if you go back to login page, sorry, we have not properly linked those. So now if I try to sign in, let me just replace now. So this is the thing that I was trying to check. So here you can see that this form also has a proper validation. So if you do not provide any username and password, so this will definitely not let us submit the form. All right. So what we have learned is basically like we configured the theme for our non-authenticated users. We created the component and we created three different view files. All right, so that's about it. And in the next lecture, we are going to start working on our dashboard pages.